Hello and welcome back to another episode of An Electrician Abroad. I'm Jordan from Artisan Electrics and behind me is beautiful Sicily. So what can I say about electrics in Sicily? Well, I wish that the electrics here were as beautiful as the scenery, let's put it that way, because the electrics in my apartment are pretty shocking. So let me show you around. So we're in this beautiful apartment, an amazing balcony as you can see, and this is the apartment. But the air conditioning isn't working. And what happened about 2 or 3 days into the holiday was that the air conditioning had been running fine and then suddenly, chunk, the electricity all went off. And it had tripped the main circuit breaker in the fuse box, which I will show you now. And it didn't want to go back on. So this is the fuse box, right? And basically what you've got is a main switch, which is double pole, but it's a single module one. You can hear the whole thing buzzing slightly. And then we've only got 2 circuit breakers here. So we've got general illuminas, which is, I guess, lighting, and we've got general presse, which is general sockets. Okay, so 2 circuits. They're both C16 circuit breakers. Okay, if I show you that. They're both type AC RCBOs, basically with 4.5 kA of braking capacity. They've got a test button, so they obviously work as an RCD, but also overload protection. But that's it. For this 2-bedroom apartment, all we have is 2 circuits, one 16 amp for lights, one 16 amp for sockets. And so what happened was the circuit here, general presse, general sockets, was tripping, and it was the air conditioning that was making it go off, which was an absolute nightmare because every time we turned the air conditioning on, the sockets all tripped and we lost the internet, and I was trying to do a bit of work online and everything kept going off. So being an electrician, obviously I tried to do a bit of an investigation, but I'm not an air conditioning expert. And so we had to call out the owner to come out, and he got his electrician out actually very quickly. I must say I was quite impressed with his electrician. And he started taking everything apart. He took apart this chiller unit here, which he basically found out. He changed one part, tried it, it still was tripping. Changed another part, tried it, still was tripping, and eventually he said it's the motor that's gone, so he needs to change the motor in it. So for the moment, this thing is only blowing air, and we've had to turn on the air conditioning in the 2 bedrooms constantly and just hope that the cold air flows through here. But what can I tell you about the electrics in this apartment? So obviously we've got gas, oven and hob, but you've got a lot of electrical appliances still, you know, microwave, coffee machine, fridge, air conditioning. There's a washing machine outside, and there's 2 more air conditioning units in the bathroom. And one of the first things he told us when we got here was, just be careful to not turn on too many appliances at once, because otherwise you'll trip the main circuit breaker, which is downstairs on the basement floor, right? And he took me down and showed me where it is. So I'm going to show you that in a minute, because that's a whole nother can of worms. But for the air conditioner, we've got this funny setup, which is like a contactor with a key switch. So basically you can't leave the air conditioning running without this key in, and the idea is that it just stops people leaving the air conditioning on all day, which I kind of get it. So presumably this is a 16 amp circuit breaker just for that air conditioning unit, and then this is a contactor, and when you turn the key it isolates and switches off the contactor so that there's no power to the air conditioning units. So that's that. But then the whole supply for this place is just really weird, because I'll show you the main meter system downstairs. It's quite unusual. So we're on the 3rd floor here. So we've got to go down all the way to the basement. Fortunately, there's a lift. So let's jump into this very old lift and I'll show you downstairs. Okay, so here we are in the basement. And this cupboard here contains all the electric meters. Let me just turn this light on. There we go. This cupboard contains all the electric meters for every apartment in this apartment block, which is kind of weird and is a little bit scary. So, this one that is in a funny location is for my apartment. And he told me this information, right? He said that we have a stronger supply in our apartment than in all the other apartments. Most of the other apartments only have a 3 kilowatt supply, but we have a 4 kilowatt supply in our apartment. And I just thought, what, so you mean the whole apartment is limited to 4 kilowatts? And normally they're limited to 3 kilowatts. That is crazy. That is super low, you know. I mean, in terms of amps, that's like 20 amp supply for the whole apartment, which is just crazy. So it's got this weird RC, I don't know if it's an RCD or not, let's see. So it's a 60898, so it's an MCB. It's a double pole, C63. 6KA, and yeah, it's got 2 poles, but then it's got some kind of internal contactor thing in there as well, if you can see that little diagram there. Some kind of switch, like an auxiliary switch or something like that. Let me know in the comments if you know what that is, because obviously Italian electrics are not my specialty. And then we've got some information here, so it's got 5 to 60 amps, 230 volts, 50 hertz. And just the EN numbers. But, I mean, look at all this, right? If we just zoom out. So you've got these single insulated cables which are feeding each of the meters, and they look like they're only probably 6 millimeters squared max. You've got that same kind of combination going into each meter, and then presumably the outgoing, I don't know whether the incoming comes in the back and then that's the outgoing, or vice versa. But look at this, I mean, this has all been kind of like crimped together. Some weird like joints going on here. Let me just turn the light back on again. So yeah, it's all a bit dodgy looking, shall we say. These kind of cables all go off into flexible conduits that are, see there next to the boxes, they go up in flexible conduits, and presumably they go in those flexible conduits all the way up through the building to the various apartments. So you've got some very thin cables and some thicker cables. This one looks like it's been cut off anyway. But these are all just single insulated wires in this funny kind of trunking stuff. And then a lot of the other meters, they actually have a triple pole breaker, 63 amp. But again, they've only got a single phase supply from what it looks like. So this is sort of padlocked, so I'm guessing that there's some kind of buzz bar assembly behind here or something that supplies the power to the various meters, but that's just a complete guess. So please let me know in the comments if you know more about this, if you're an electrical expert from Italy. See, we've got exposed connectors here. Again, you know, just connectors taped up. And it all looks a bit scary and like a fire hazard, really. So, intriguing, huh? This is obviously quite old. And these are the ones that I was going to show you before the lights went off. I mean, look at that. They've just, I guess they've been crimped together and then just taped up. but it just looks a bit dodgy to me. So, let me know, is this the standard for Italian electrics, or am I just in a very dodgy old building? What is this whole thing about 3 kilowatt, 4 kilowatt? Is that really the limit for these kind of flats? Because that just, for me, that doesn't make any sense. If you turn the washing machine on with the air conditioning, it trips the main breaker and you have to run all the way down the stairs or come to the lift, down the lift, to actually get your power back on. I mean, that just seems absolutely mad to me. But, as I say, I'm no expert. Now this seems to be the general kind of board for the whole place. So I presume this feeds the lift, which has a 3-phase supply, and then there's like a TV aerial, lights, sockets for the cleaners and stuff like that. This looks fairly nice. ABB stuff is good quality, and they have got RCD protection here. How often they actually get tested, I have no idea. Let me know in the comments if you know anything about Italian electrics in terms of regulations, like do they have to have a regular inspection like we do in the UK or not? But so far, I'm not particularly impressed really. And there's one more thing that I wanted to show you, which is up here. Oh, that's the emergency lighting, by the way, which looks a bit dodgy. But up here, the main circuit breaker for the lift is in its own little enclosure, and it's just exposed, which is quite hilarious, because it basically means that anyone who wants to can just turn the lift off. So you see this? This plastic enclosure, the lid has obviously fallen off or been removed. It's on a 32 amp 3-pole MCB, but anyone could just flick that off and then the lift doesn't work. So that's a bit dodgy. I love looking at stuff like this though. I find it kind of fascinating because it's just amazing to see how people do things in different countries. And obviously this is an older building. Presumably the more modern buildings have a higher standard of electrical installation. But let me know your thoughts in the comments as always. I love to hear your opinions about these things, and if you've enjoyed this video, hit a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because I post regular videos all about the life of an electrician, and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on future videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Going up.